Welcome back to another episode of the Golden Rule Show. You know, there's kind of two facets to that name. The Golden Rule, do unto others as you want them done unto you. Well, what I want done unto me is I want to be given truth and good information so I can make wise choices for my family. You know, the other side of it is the person who has the gold makes the rules, and both things are kind of true. So what are the people that are sort of leading the parade? People have been in this space for a long time. People have been investing. I mean, I'm not talking about just individuals. I'm talking hedge funds. I'm talking about nations. What are they doing? We're going to answer those questions today with someone who understands every single aspect from mining to minting metals, the marketing, the business side of it. He is a God-loving patriot and somebody that has a pretty good grasp on every single thing that yourself and myself probably are trying to wrap their head around right now, the changes in currency, the nations that are in play. He's been on just about every continent and every country grabbing hold of this information. So join us for this conversation. We also, if you want to take a little bit deeper dive into what's going on, we've partnered up with Dr. Kirk Elliott, and he has a book called Thriving the Economic Tsunami. We've made available for you a free download of this book, and I think it's critical. If you have children, if you know children, if you like children, if you might even kind of be a child at heart, or maybe you have the mind of a child, this is an incredible book because it helps put in perspective some things like the $2 million cup of coffee, identifying the end game, precious metals, owning gold and silver, how nations die, the history of currencies, and protecting your investments. It covers just about everything you want to know. You could be reading this book tonight. You can download it for free, read it on your phone, your iPad, your laptop, whatever you like. You just go to flyovergold.com, enter your information there. You can also enter in your information to get a free consultation with Dr. Kirk Elliott and his team. Known Dr. Kirk for over 25 years personally. He has 2 PhDs, understands the investment of getting out of fiat currency into bullion, getting the most amount of metal for your dollar, humanly possible. That's their focus every single day. And they can sit down and give you a good conversation about what are your options, what's the best thing for you, educate you on, hey, this is a move you might consider, and then you hang up the phone and pray about it and see kind of what direction you want to go. And one of the first steps would be download this free book. You want to get your own copy. It's available completely free. Flyovergold.com. Go there and check it out. I'm excited about being on this journey with you. I'm so hungry to learn from some of the brightest minds in our space. You've been with us on this journey each and every Wednesday night. You know the kind of people that we're talking about. Tonight is no different. I'm incredibly excited. Get ready and buckle up. You're going to learn a lot. If you're following along on X and any kind of social media platforms, when they started poking into, we're going to dig into Fort Knox. We're going to see what's there. There's a tension going to gold that hasn't been in years. Metals, investments, even just the ideas of currency all the way around. When Trump tends to point the camera somewhere or say something, he kind of throws it over there. Hey, why are we in NAFTA? What's going on with that wall? Why don't we have a border? And everybody's like, the border's fine. And then they start looking at it and like, it's a terrible thing. He's been doing this since 2015. So when he starts talking about something like Fort Knox, all of a sudden all the eyeballs go there and they start wondering, well, I thought it was all there. I don't know much about Fort Knox. It was in the Bugs Bunny cartoons when I was a kid. What's actually, that is a good question. It's people's, so all the eyes and conversation kind of go there. Well, somebody kind of rose to the top and started pointing attention to this better than about anyone else. He has an expertise and an altitude to be able to see the landscape a little bit different than most people. Since 2008, he's owned Scottsdale Mint. He's been involved in everything from mining to producing legal tender for over 20 different nations. Every facet of the metals process, this guy has a grasp on. I'm excited to learn as much as humanly possible today from Mr. Josh Philip Phair. Welcome to the show, Josh. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I was reaching out. You were one of the first people I thought of when we broke off and added this show to the Flyover Conservative lineup, because there's so much going on, and it's in a space that people are aware of. But, most people, my age or older, they went through their whole life. Money was something stored. You go to the bank, there's a vault in the back with pallets of cash, you assume. They got money. You work for your job. You might cash a check, but money was a pretty simple thing. There wasn't cryptocurrencies and Cash App and Venmo, and the ideas of money have shifted a lot, and it's kind of funny that it's gone full circle all the way back to like almost biblical times with tangible metals being so important.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot has happened the last few years, so that's for sure.
It's changed a ton. I want to get into all those spaces with you, but I want to start with what's the most pressing thing. When someone has access directly, like direct relationship with somebody that knows so much about what's going on in the world, and then they use that currency. I'm going to read one of your tweets right here that was inspired by your son. You tweeted, "My son just asked me, Dad, will Nintendo move the Switch 2 manufacturing to the USA to avoid tariffs?" It's like he used all of his currency about global finance, investment, and what to do with it to the Nintendo. What was your answer?
I said that's a good question.
You got a smart kid too.
He listens to me a lot, so he's around me enough to where he soaks up. Often I'll come home from work. He's on literally the corner of the road selling Pokemon cards to the public. So he's kind of got an engineering mind, but he understands the value of buying, holding, trading, and definitely I feel like he's only 10, but he's kind of got a fast track on what's going on in the world a little bit just by being around me, obviously. So he'll end up being smarter than I am for sure.
Well, you're kind of just building up the base of the pyramid for him to come along and stand on top of and go further.
Well, hey, whatever. We'll see where it goes, and I've got a pretty smart younger daughter too behind him. So the two of them will be pretty fun in years to come.
My son showed me a hat the other day. It's online. The dad's, it's like a trucker hat. The dad says legend, and then there's a replica of it, and his son had said legacy, on it. And that's kind of why you do a lot of the stuff you do. It's like, man, they can stand on your shoulders and see a little further than you. And if your son's at 10 years old asking about tariffs and how it's going to impact, there you go. This is the hat. Legacy and legend. That's you guys. He's looking at the world a little different than maybe the other 10-year-olds he's around, I would assume.
I think especially with where we're at versus like when I grew up, we have to do everything we can to, one, kind of protect and delay, let's just say, the world while they're very young, but also get them to start thinking in ways that they're not going to be taught in any school, frankly. So, I think we're all learning a lot of what we had learned growing up, or may not have been completely accurate, and especially now we can't just turn on the news and listen to Tom Brokaw or whoever's on and just believe everything at face value. We have to learn critical thinking, which is not taught really anywhere. So,
yeah,
100%.
Well, more than ever before, I think it's important to be in the driver's seat. A lot of people we kind of taught this specialization idea of, okay, you just do your job, and then when it comes to your health, just ask your doctor, and whatever he says, man, just do it. Or, when it comes to your faith, or when it comes to your kids' education, I think people saw during COVID, their kids were doing work, and they're like, what is that? And kind of learned, I better get engaged in some of these other areas that I might have just abdicated to the experts. And, I think our finances, are the highest among that.
Yeah. Well, and then we're all kind of experts, according to the internet, right? Everyone is an expert on tariffs now. A few weeks before that, it was, international trade negotiations. We're all experts in whatever problems are in the world. But, that aside, I do think we do have to learn like how to get that knowledge base, process it. I'm a big fan of. I listen to a lot of people, but I follow none. If that makes sense. So
That's a good.
And never get married to like a trade or a thought. I mean, and COVID was a great example. I mean, I was in Europe in January, and I knew something was coming. So when I came back, I was in Arizona at the time. Just talking with friends and people from church, I was like, hey, there's something called Zoom. There's like, you might want to buy a chest freezer. And I started doing all these things, and people were like, man, you're a little strange. But, as the data points changed within about 2 weeks, I'm like, something's not right. We were showed videos of people falling over in China,
Yeah.
Dead in the street. And then when we realized, something was wrong, I quickly pivoted as to what was going on. So I think, And that's really the same thing in finance or gold or even the industries, whether I'm in it heavily or a little bit. You take that data point, you put it on the board, and you kind of move it around to hopefully make the best decisions. That's
We got a
what
bunch of
I try.
questions for you about China and gold and the dollar and what they're doing. But your background, one of the questions I've got to ask you is in all transparency, is are you a vampire? Because you don't age. You have been doing a lot of stuff for a long time. You did Scottsdale in 2008. You go back to mining and copper. There's not a facet of this space, and I kind of said it in the introduction, though, but it's not an exaggeration. There literally is almost no angle in this world that you've not gotten your hands dirty.
Well, I
You must have
appreciate
started.
that.
Did you start at 10?
I did start young. I'm in my mid 40s now. I was kind of an odd duck and got a degree in risk management
Okay.
and was 20, I think it was 24 years old, and I landed a $1 billion gold mining company as my first mining client. A company by the name of Glamis Gold for maybe some of those that have followed it. That turned into Gold Corp, and now it's Newmont Mining. And then suddenly, you saw a problem. I'm working with the CFO, and you learn the gold industry, and you learn their problems and what they need, and essentially I just help solve problems, and then suddenly, I'm handling multiples of mining companies through anything from political risk insurance to construction projects in Latin America, Africa. I'm working with the World Bank to meet requirements. I'm being appointed by bankruptcy courts to manage like the 𝗧𝗢𝗗𝗦𝗢, which was
Wow.
Grupo Mexico's for a big copper company. I was just involved in a lot of it, and what I realized is I liked finance and insurance, but what I loved was metals. It was the most, and so that's where you have an idea. And during the last financial crisis, the '08 is when I started what's now Scottsdale Mint in 2008. So yeah,
So it was a big year for a lot of people, one way or the other.
that you could say that. And I think now this is, that was a big event. And then obviously we kicked the can down most of our politicians and kind of kicked the can down the road. And now we're kind of facing reality. And now this is like the biggest decade, at least for anyone that's been alive for the most part. This is a very interesting time to witness and watch, and things happen. What used to take years happen in days. So, and who knows what we're going to face over the next few years.
What was it about metals? You say you kind of got bit by the bug, with that you liked these things, but then you fell in love with that. What was
Anytime
was
you
it a
get a
feeling,
hold,
an idea? What was that about?
yeah, anytime you get a hold of knowledge that a lot of other people don't fully grasp and understand, and it actually first started with copper, and this is I think it was in 2002 and three, and copper was like 60 cents a pound, and now it's been trading $4, $5, $6, and at that time just kind of learning that marketplace about what happens and why, from the economics of what's going on in China, the growth of China. Before that was they were leading up to the Olympics, and invested in some mining companies that were otherwise broke, and bought them just with the idea that once copper gets above $1, suddenly some of these mining companies might be profitable. So that's kind of what got me thinking about metals. And shortly thereafter, I met a guy on the internet called Ron Paul, and I'd say he was a pretty big inspiration of mine
Yeah,
in terms of sound money and looking at and obviously that
sure.
got me in gold and silver, which and obviously isn't taking me now it's been my basically my career for more than 2 decades. So yeah, it's been an interesting run. It always takes longer than you think. Like I would call it the economy falling apart, all the different things, but everything just keeps building and happening, and it's been fun to kind of build my business around kind of around a general thesis. If you kind of know where you're headed, and you put yourself in the best position based on where you think things are going to go at a macro level, from a business perspective or even a family perspective. And that's, partly why
Yeah.
I moved to Wyoming, was kind of a hybrid between wanting the best for my family and wanting the best for my employees, and where can I put my head down and just work hard and hopefully get through what has been otherwise a very awkward decade so far.
Well, one of the pictures on your X handle, little banner across the top, has you and a couple of other like pretty legit looking cowboys. I don't know if they're hired actors or something that you got just for that, but it's about as great of a Wyoming. There's a picture of that's. I mean,
Yeah.
you could be selling beer or cigarettes or anything, but that's like Marlboro, man, like nailing
Well, I guess I'm more the gentleman rancher type, but
it's like
I've been
straight
in
from
Wyoming.
Yellowstone casting.
There you go. I was born in North Dakota and lived, and I used to go to rodeos quite often in Arizona. So, but here you're in Wyoming, and Casper, is the town we're in, is the home of the CNFR, College National Finals Rodeo, which is like the
Hmm.
Rose Bowl
Yeah.
of rodeos. So, you kind of, if you're gonna be in Wyoming, you really want to embrace it and take hold of, and have fun with it. But frankly, I think the reason why cowboy culture has, like, it's beyond, obviously the TV show Yellowstone helped,
Hmm.
but it's now in fashion. It's everywhere. But I think, people long for the cowboy ethics of old, right? Which is
Hmm.
just, it's very basic Christian principles, and it also includes hard work. And you look at, had America just maybe stayed more aligned with those cowboy ethics, we'd probably be a better place, for sure. So I think a lot of people long for, what that, historical, culture of just hard work and treating people
Yeah.
right. And we definitely lost our way as a nation.
You know, I think there's a hunger for something real. We have a nation of people that, I think it's 42%. I interviewed a doctor earlier today, but it's 42% obesity rate of people that are malnourished, and it's like you can be overweight and have no nutrients because you're eating fake food that looks good in a picture. There's kind of fake relationships. You may have 5,000 friends on Facebook, but move and see who's on the other end of the sofa. That's how many friends you got. It's probably not 5,000. Want to know who your real friends are. Put out a post you're moving on Saturday. So there's just a lot of fake everything, and I think that culture of the idea of cowboy up, the ability to, is something that is the appeal, not just lifestyle wise, but even with medals. It's like
Yep.
what of all the stuff in the world, where is something that's actually like, I have a 10-ounce piece of silver here, like, this is real. I could go bury this in the ground. Somebody could find it 1,000 years from now. It's going to have value. It's something you can touch. There's a scene we've played before from, I think it was Parks and Rec or The Office, one of them, that somebody in the show had inherited 1 million shares of, I think, Blockbuster stock, from like an uncle that had passed away. And it was like, oh, this would have been worth something at some point, but now it's zero. And I think this idea of like, what is actually worth something, and it's increasingly, not this.
Yeah.
And I think that cowboy culture, we're looking for it in our food. What's real, and looking for it in our relationship. I think there's this generation. Like, my son's 31 and my daughter's 28. They're friends. A lot of them are crocheting. And they're making, sourdough bread or whatever, with starters. Like, there's a longing. It's not everybody in that generation, but there's a large number that are trying to do something that's real.
Um, Totally agree. I think I don't think it's just a trend. It's just going to continue. I mean, just even think like where we're headed with, with tariffs, right? We're leaving the world of consumerism, of the throwaway culture of just, hey, I'll buy something temporary, use it for a year or two,
Yeah.
and throw it away. We're going to have to start making decisions based on, I want something that's going to last, essentially a lifetime, and buy it once. Yes, it's going to be more money, but I'm going to buy things that matter to me. And actually, I anytime new people come to work with Scottsdale, man, I really want the whole team to really understand, while we do produce gold and silver products, that's sold all over the world, and we make a lot of our product is sold under other names that we produce for just about everyone in the world. I feel like we produce for. So you always tell them we like to make things that are the last things that person wants to sell. So the beauty of gold silver, like you said, is you've got it, you're building wealth. A lot of people are building it to pass down to the next generation. Other people may have it there for a rainy day, right? Maybe you come upon hard times, or you need to, buy a car, or a down payment on a home, and you need to sell it. That's, quite common. Well, our job is, I always want to make products that it's the last one they want to get rid of. So it means something to them. So, produce things that are essentially heirloom,
Yeah.
even if it's something you do need to sell. Hopefully it's things that, will fight over, frankly, as opposed to going, oh
Oh,
my gosh, this is stuff I don't want. It
absolutely.
has value. Yeah.
There's a company called Saddleback Leather. It's got an owner, a guy named Dave, that I started following on Instagram, and I just got so fascinated by these leather bags and things he made. Moleskin covers, leather bags. They're like horse tack, leather, solid. And then one of their slogans is they make things that they'll fight over when you're dead. And so I got
Perfect.
so interested in it that I started making some things, and it's all hand stitched by hand. You punch holes in the leather. I got the pigskin line, and people, people say, "Oh man, those are nice. You could sell that." I'm like, dude, it was 100 hours of just stitching this out seam, here. It's like, it'd be $800 for the leather, for the lobster claws and the buckles and things on there. But like, while I'm making it, there's such a gratifying feeling of, this will outlive me. My grandkids are going to pass this down, and if it's even remotely taken care of, this is something they will fight over, when I'm dead. And I think, again, that's kind of the appeal of metals, is having something. What, I worked for this. I don't know what it's going to be worth, probably more in the future, but it's not going to zero. The floor is really high.
Yeah. That perfect. That was, that model of that company, I'm gonna have to go check them out. That's pretty awesome. I mean, if you look at a lot of the fashion brands, Hermes kind of comes to mind. They start off as a saddle company, so they were making
Okay.
tack for horses, right? And then they got into probably somewhere along the line they got into either satchels or purses, and now, fast forward a few decades, they're a fashion brand. So, it's their stuff's pretty expensive now, and obviously they're not focused on it. But if you go into, let's say you're in Las Vegas and you walk into Hermes store, you'll see they'll probably have a saddle in there somewhere. Right? That's their roots of where they came from. So that type of trade work, right? Where is it gone? All right, it's still, there's still some left. There's not a lot out there. And so, you figure places like Italy and the United States, and maybe some other places in South America, a lot of that
Hmm.
stuff left. All that, the either the mind, the brain, that the skill with the hands, all that left for, let's just say, mass scale operations, probably out of places like China.
Yeah.
So it's going to take people that are kind of dabbling into it again, and trying to create something. And that's what my company does as well. And actually, we'll be launching a higher end home and art thing, a company that's launching later this year. And we're bringing in artisans. There's only like a handful in the entire United States that have skill sets around, like, let's say, silverware, for example. There are no companies making silverware in the United States, and I'll tell you
Zero.
why.
Zero.
It's zero. There's
Wow.
one flatware company, so and they have there's one flatware company, that, and they basically get all the U.S. contract for all the U.S. government, because they have to buy, if you're buying, just stainless steel, for the Army, it goes to Liberty, out of New York, is a Liberty Flatware, I believe is the name, and which was the former Oneida. But
Okay.
all those brands, they left the U.S. shores, and so, yeah, it's going to be interesting as we go forward. So what we do, while we do make bars and coins, heavily centered around investment product, we also do a lot of collectibles. We do a lot of, thanks to Trump, all the collectibles in precious metals are now being tariffed. So we're getting a lot of the business of huge brand names. If I name the ones I'm working on, these are all like top 10, top 20 brands in the US. Why were they getting made in China to begin with? So now my company's going to be producing a lot of that collectible stuff, but we'll also be launching, just other things here. That was kind of the goal, even before I knew how to spell tariff correctly. Is it two R's or one? So yeah, it's a, I think what we have a lot of artisans on staff, from sculptors to hand engravers to, people that just work with metal, work with wood, all sorts of things. So we're definitely pretty excited about, what we're building in Wyoming, and, whether it relates more on the investment side, or it's something that you can eat with, or, in long term, we'll be releasing more information, stuff that might be sold in art galleries and stuff like that. So we're pretty excited about the future.
Well, some of your pieces, producer Colton's playing some B-roll now, are just beautiful. My interest has been pretty much just how much silver can I get for the ounces, for the dollars I'm spending, how many ounces can I get, per dollar, and just, stack it. But you literally make silver that stacks.
Yep.
I mean, it's pretty unique. And some of the most beautiful designs.
Well, thank you. And it kind of just translates to it, and we do have things that are very price competitive, that sell, at an investment level. But I've always learned, like, people want things that maybe are more special to them. Maybe they have it on their desk. They show their family or their friends when they come over. And really that's, it has the word precious in it for a reason. So it is precious metal. And so we definitely try to make it look and feel, that like you want to hold it, and people just get, I think with our brand, I think we produce, it's a little over 1,000 different products per year that we produce. So whether that's stuff that's being sold on other companies' websites with their brand on it, or it's something with ours, we're always trying to come up with new things that people would love to own.
You mentioned silverware. I never even knew who to ask about this, but I have heard that real silverware, we use the term silverware a lot. People use that term if it's plastic for a picnic or something, but actual silverware. We had something as a kid blown to my grandmother. Probably my older siblings have it now or something. I don't even know where it's at, but it was in a wooden box with red velvet, and had kind of a cool smell to it, and it pulls out. But is it true that real silverware, it's has aversion to bacteria, germs, that it has almost a health quality to the utensils?
Absolutely. And that's why, like, surgical equipment is all at a minimum silver plated. So anything that's going into the human body typically is silver, because it does resist bacteria. It is. And so you probably have seen also some of the more sophisticated Band-Aids, some of them are even in the stores, actually have silver thread in the Band-Aids to help with infections. Wow. So that is something historically that has definitely been part of it. And I think we're also, as probably people watching the show have learned, like the Teflon, you don't want to cook with Teflon nonstick pots and pans. Right. Because what are you doing? As you're scraping it, that's getting into your food, those chemicals. Well, there's going to be another movement that realizes a lot of the metal, right, that you're using, whether it's knives, forks, that's going into your mouth. The question is where was it made, and what's in it? And so you're like a lot of the Chinese stainless steel. You always look at things like they don't hold up the same, and there's different grades of metal. And so historically, I think my guess is if we kind of go back in time, humanity maybe knew more about its health, and so why was silver used as silverware? And it was a combination of, like, when a couple first got married, it was a way of people providing something of wealth to a newly married couple, and so that was kind of their first wealth. And today, I'd say like an average sterling, like, per setting's about $1,000. Well, that's because silver's more money than it used to be. But it would kind of set a husband wife up right? If they ever had a hard time, they could potentially sell their silverware. But there absolutely there's a health benefit of things that you're putting in your mouth. What is in that? So I think you're going to start seeing that a little bit more. That's talking about where are your even your flatware sets, where are they made? What type of metals are they used? We've all probably seen the cheap stuff that it starts to fade right away. Well, where's all that
Hmm.
metal going? So I could see ourselves. A lot of people would say, "Oh, I don't want to clean my silverware," because we've kind of gotten this just in now. But at the same time, I know people that love vehicles. They love to take care of their vehicles because
Yeah.
it's something. And sometimes they're going to pass that vehicle on to their kids. And I think that could come back. Now, the reality is sometimes grandma's silverware doesn't match our homes. But just imagine if like we were to come out with a brand later this year that you're like, wow, this is pretty awesome, and this is something I would want.
Modern and cool and silver.
Modern and cool, and it does become something you want to take care of, and it's almost like a flex of like, hey, yeah, I do have to take care of it, but this stuff it's legit, and it's probably gonna be worth a lot more when I can't use it anymore down the road, as opposed to something else that you bought at Walmart.
Right. Well, and there is a trend that way. It's very common now to see cast iron, you know, pans in people's homes, and that would have been like, oh, that's old grandma stuff, and now cast iron's kind of the cool thing. Yeti mugs can't be any more popular. They are. People will pay ridiculous prices for anything that's got Yeti on it because it's going to last. They want to take care of it. They don't mind paying more. I was even thinking while you're talking. I remember reading. What is it with 𝗕𝗢𝗄𝗓, the old the French Revolution play, Les Miserables. Um, the idea of the main character in there, Jean Valjean, breaking in and stealing the silverware, was his crime. Well, that's kind of an odd thing today. Like, why would you risk yourself for some aluminum forks? But back then, it was wealth. It was the candle holders and the silverware, because it was all real. It was all valuable. And they held it had one set. It wasn't throw it out and get another one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be interesting. We're coming full circle. I don't know if you've seen the meme that's like these stick figures, and it's like, hey, mom and dad, I want to leave the farm and I want to go live life in the city, and then basically in the very end, it's like I want to come home and I want
Yeah.
to work farm, and yeah, it's. I think we're learning more that we kind of as a culture we bought into consumerism, we bought
Yeah.
into a lot of things, and look, there's a lot of benefits to modern technology and things, but there's no doubt that sometimes returning to our roots is it can be a really good experience.
100%. There's an expression, poor people want to get rich so they can hire somebody because they get tired of mowing their grass. They want to be rich enough to be able to hire somebody to mow their grass. Really wealthy people eventually are so wealthy that the major flex is that they have time to mow their grass and have a mower and actually do it. Kind of becomes that, like, man, you have enough free time to mow your grass and you got, space to do it.
Yeah.
It kind of does go all around full circle. Let's jump into some of the things that you've talked about. You've gone, I think, for Jamie Dimon, selling $233 million, in stock. That's a signal. If you see a cloud coming and you're outside, doesn't mean you got to run indoors in terror, but you can usually see rain before it's coming. That's a big thing. And then you began being one of the first people to kind of break down the idea of the gold movement around the world. And you started noticing that and then commenting on it. And early, like, I don't have an answer for this. It's an observation. There's gold moving out of London. It's going here. It's going there. These are all signs that there's a tectonic plate shift underneath of our feet. What are you seeing with that?
Yeah, I'm not, a hype broker. I just call it kind of as I see it. And I think, really good point. I was in Europe coming back end of January, was maybe the first week of February. I was flying back and I was like, it all kind of hit me as I was talking with a number of people in Europe. I was talking with, and we do a lot of armed transport, and And I knew this was kind of going on in December pretty heavily, and then it dawned on me that the size and scale of which gold is moving has to be something bigger than just tariff risk. And so as I kind of put it together, I just started sharing it. And sure enough, like a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know. And then all the data started coming in that says not only was I right, it was a historic amount of gold that was coming in. And we know that based on import records and COMEX gold deliveries that was coming in. And I think, you're seeing Donald Trump and Elon Musk have been talking about gold. And a lot of it's like, is it in Fort Knox? Surely it's audited. Maybe we should audit it. Let's go in with a camera. I mean, nothing's taken place yet. And I don't know for sure, but there's just so much gold that's been brought over to the United States. My high level, and I haven't gotten too heavy into it on X. You'll see a little bit of I'm laying it out. I think the world is bifurcating. So we're leaving globalism, and we're going to, like, right now it's all trade disputes, right, based on
Right.
tariff, and right now it's kind of U.S. versus everybody. Well, the reality is there's alliances, right, and you're seeing the BRICS countries
Yep.
are aligned and potentially trying to create their own currency. I mean, the thing is, the problem is the U.S. dollar has a problem. Well, the Chinese yuan has a problem. The euro has a problem. So, what currency do you go to? And so this is where Trump has said, as a warning shot to the BRICS, he did this right before Christmas, before he was even in the office. He says, don't create a new currency and don't back it. And he said that to the BRICS. And not a lot of people talked about that. And I think, and as you start to watch, what has happened, ever since the Ukraine war conflict really took off, when the Russian assets were seized all over the world, and in particular in Europe. I mean, Putin's own neighbors seized his assets. That was kind of a shot across the bow within the SWIFT system that they need to create something different that cannot be seized. So I
Hmm.
think what you're seeing is that side's clearly wanting to buy gold, and they have been over the last few years. And I think the U.S., from a reported standpoint, is the largest holder of gold in the world. It would not shock me if Trump is perhaps trying to make sure he stays, the U.S. stays in that number one slot. So you kind of have a war over the physical gold above ground, and then you're seeing mineral, like, everyone's going after minerals in ground, and that kind of relate. You hear a lot about rare earth minerals and
Yeah.
things for Greenland and Canada, but what you aren't hearing as much is especially for Canada in particular is how much gold is in the ground there too. So there's no doubt that there's a race, to make sure you're not left behind. You can be left behind militarily, and what is, if we're in some sort of World War III at some point, when we do finally see something kinetic, it's probably not going to look like World War II, right? So
Right.
it's probably not going to necessarily be tanks and planes to the same level. It's going to be, we're seeing light drone warfare over in Ukraine, but this could be at a whole new level. And you need way more AI, you need
Hmm.
way more power, right? And this is why they're basically saying, well, we need to make sure our coal reserves we're going to continue on, because we can't. They're only telling the countries they want, like Germany, hey, shut down. You can shut down your nuclear power plants, but then, meanwhile, like China is building them all, and finally, the
They're
United
building
States.
another one every week or something, And
That's
they were talking
right.
about this big AI plant in Arizona, having multiple sources of power with a redundant system of coal, next to it, like whatever it takes. It feels like wasn't around in the '60s, but that the space race, like everything falls to the side. We got to be the first ones to orbit the Earth. We got to be the first ones to the moon. We got to, that kind of thing. And then maybe with nuclear capabilities post World War II, the idea of just whatever it takes, but you can't be left behind. There's two groups of nations in the world: those with nuclear capabilities and those without. And that's the way AI feels now. And when it comes to the space that you kind of dominate, is all of it takes silver. There's
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
nothing happening in the world. Whatever the future holds, if it's going to be solar panels, or it's going to be torpedoes, or it's going to be drones, it all takes silver.
Yeah. Silver is one of the most conductive materials there is in the world. The only thing that's more is gold, but that's 80 to 100 it's closer to 100 times the price.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. Silver is used in everything, and in it's probably been under discussed how much it's going to be used in AI computer chips. And so yeah, it's there's no doubt that everyone is scrambling for the resources above ground and below ground. And then the second thing is they need it in their jurisdiction. So you're seeing jurisdiction matters, and I think
That's
that's
a
a
great
theme.
point.
So I started a new vaulting operation. It's called the Wyoming Reserve, and we're really focused. We work with a lot of other bullion dealers around the world. We work with institutions, banks. We've got governments that are looking at it because it's not in New York City, right? It's not in London. You may not want it in London, but do you want it in New York? Well, Wyoming might be a better place. So
Yeah.
we have been incredibly busy this calendar year with people that hold gold over in London or Switzerland, and they want it in the United States. So our team has just been really big with doing, asset transfers and just building that in. And a lot of the big banks, it's the same thing. Things were just historically in places like London. But if you kind of look at where Starmer, that's heading up the UK, he's not getting along too well with Trump. So Trump's like, let's bring our gold back to the US. Who knows where Europe is going? They're all saying they want to go, and create the army of Europe. And they would love to continue. And frankly, I think economically, history kind of shows that sometimes when the economy says you have to go to war, that's what people that pull the strings do. And now, if suddenly the UK were to put troops on the ground in Ukraine, London is absolutely a target, right?
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate to see this, but again, for a lot of us, we don't think about history, and you don't want to be Paris that's moving their gold out because the Nazis are coming in, and there's like books
Yes.
and movies about all that midnight move of the gold to get it out on the ships. I mean, you don't want to do that. So now people just do it in advance. And so you're seeing, China's bringing metal to their country.
Yeah.
Germany's even asking for their gold back from England, and it's taken for a long time. Venezuela a few years says, "Hey, we'll take our gold back," and then someone there said, "Nope." And so I think it's still somewhere in the world courts as to whose gold that is. But what did they say? Possession is 9/10 of the law, and
Yeah.
absolutely people want their material in their country, and U.S. has problems, there's no doubt, but we're still one of the best for property rights, and so institutionally, America is still a fantastic place to be, and frankly, to get through what will be some trying times.
You make this statement. I love what you're saying there, because it is. Let me ask you to you this way. I've asked a few people. They're kind of in your seat, this question. Let me preface this. I don't believe in aliens. Let's just put that out there so it doesn't really go. But let's just say theoretically, if there was an alien race and they had some kind of a radar gun and they could make all the gold in the world disappear or all the silver disappear at the flip of a switch, which one would make the biggest difference?
Yeah, it'd be silver, because silver gets consumed. Gold sits in vaults, right? And it's primarily a monetary metal. Only a little bit is used in industry. Some jewelry,
and for rappers.
You got it. There you go.
But mostly it's investment.
Yeah, mostly it's investment. Whereas silver gets used in, it's in our phones, it's in medical, it's in solar, it's in all, in particular technology. So it's even in like we saw some silver tightness during when everyone was buying chest freezers, because silver gets used for the brazing, to make freezers. We saw that during COVID, and yeah, people don't realize how much it gets used, and really, even though silver to gold ratios average just over the last year or so, and it's been closer to 100 to 1, but it's been closer to 80 to 1, but it pulls out of the ground at a ratio of 8 to 1. But yet, the price isn't quite reflected in it, and so
why is that? Why? How could it be that it would take me 100, 100 of these to get 1 ounce of gold, when if you're pulling a chunk out of the earth, the ratio is not that, and this is necessary for everything that we do. And it's a depleting result. Most of the gold that has ever been pulled out of the earth is somewhere, you know. I mean,
Correct.
it's not. You put this in a torpedo and blow it up, it's gone. Or put it in a
I think
satellite and launch stuff. It's just so this is a diminishing resource, and they both come out at a fixed ratio.
yeah, it's mainly the central banks. So they are literally printing fiat, right? Just
Okay.
paper money, and then they're taking a portion of it and they're buying physical gold with it. Literally every quarter they're doing this. But the big ones. A lot of people haven't caught on to this. So it's the only other thing on their balance sheets outside of the paper money
Mm-hmm.
is physical gold. So they use it as a monetary instrument. And when there's political distrust, which if you think there's a little bit, it's not just distrust of consumers for their politicians. It's country to country. There is such a concern, and no one even knows if the data is right. Like, do you believe the GDP number from China versus? No one even gives any information anymore. And if they do, you don't know if it's real. So what they're doing is they're raising the percentage of gold ownership. So what's happening is you just had this undercurrent of a new buyer over the last few years of central bankers who have unlimited capital. So that's where the gold is going. Now, what is interesting is we had an article that we posted on our website, maybe might have been in January or February, but the Russia, the country, is considering, they put out a report, they're considering putting silver on their balance sheets.
Right.
So, David, that's where it gets really interesting because, look, if it's just a small amount of consumers buying silver from time to time, yeah, that can have an impact over the long term. But if countries start getting involved with that kind of capital, there's not enough silver for it. So it wouldn't surprise me as gold continues to kind of be the primary focus. Follow in the footsteps of the giants, right? They're doing gold first, and then you're going to start to see,
Yes.
the possibility they're going to start adding silver as well. So, there's no doubt, like a lot of times when I talk gold, a lot of times people say, well, what about silver? Well, it's a brother-sister relationship, right? It's gold is for the kings, silver's for the people, so there is an element where it will drag each other up, and it can't stay, in my opinion, it can stay out of whack for a while, but not forever.
Do you
And
feel
so
like that rubber band is stretched about as far as it can? And then let me ask you this way. If you had to make a prediction, if I forced you to say, okay, 6 months from now or a year, we just pick a date, whatever, say 1 year from now, the odds of gold being twice the price it is right now, or the odds of silver being twice the price it is right now? Say, gold being at 66 or say silver being at 65. Which would be more likely?
It's definitely silver by far. It has weight because it is a smaller market.
Right.
I mean, what we did just see, I posted it on X. We did just see last night a 1.5% move in gold in an hour, right? Which is that was unheard of. That's what used to take like months or a year. It's doing it in 1 hour. Silver can move even faster. So, I think silver's more volatile to the downside as well. So that's something to take into consideration. So it's volatile down but also up. But I'm not one I don't completely poo-poo gold. Gold can easily do a 10x even from here over, like, I think we've got massive problems if at the end of the decade we're at a 10x of where we're at today. Maybe a 3x would be more conservative, if I'm putting a number. But I don't put that outside the realm of possibility, just based on historical ratios of how much debt is in the world to how much dollars is printed. And the reality is, David, we don't know how much dollars were printed. And that's something that's really been under, because the U.S. publishes, right, through the Federal Reserve, how many dollars are out there. We do, the M2 supply. There's the money supply gets reported. But what Elon Musk discovered was that there was a number of hidden money printers within the U.S. government.
Yeah.
So literally some department was creating digital dollars and sending it out. Well, they haven't said how much. Is it $1 million? Is it $1 billion? Is it $1 trillion? We have no idea. Well,
That's a big difference.
I think the other countries, when we found that out, they're not wasting time. So what's been going up hard this year? It's been gold.
Yeah.
So absolutely, the distrust is just rising even more. And I would say the U.S. was probably one that you could kind of trust more than the others, versus, let's say, Zimbabwe or some of the other crazy countries where you've seen the currencies just implode. But now, I mean, Warren Buffett just said this week, he's very concerned about the U.S. dollar and the currency. So he's sitting in cash. He's going to have to figure out what
a lot of cash. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but it's I've seen them around. It's crazy how liquid Warren Buffett is in a time where people are like stock market's great. It's like he's in the most strongest liquid position ever.
And my thinking is, by the way, he got in trouble for trying to corner the silver market in the 90s. So don't let him tell you that he doesn't like gold and silver because it doesn't create a yield. And then he has a Berkshire Hathaway company in precious metals. It's called, if you look it up, it's the Ridgeline Group, and they're one of the largest jewelry manufacturers. They make stuff for other brands, so you can look them up on Berkshire. So he's allowed to now own gold and silver on the balance sheet of one of his companies as a commercial operator, not as a speculator. So he got slapped by the Commodities Futures Trading Commission in the late 90s and had to liquidate his silver position. That actually turned into that lot of his silver turned into the silver ETF. So yeah, you've got Ridgeline Group pulled up. They don't sell to consumers, so no one really knows who these guys are. But think like Sheet, Wire, the Findings. They kind of are the underbelly of a lot of jewelry companies. You can look up their financials. They do a few, and they own a little bit of gold and silver. I'll put it that way. But I think if you fast forward to what is he probably doing with his cash? My personal take is he's prepared. He's going to wait for a government bailout, meaning disarray. This happened, for him in the past, right? When the banking system collapses or something happens, the government sometimes turns to well-heeled people, such as Berkshire Hathaway, and they say, "Tell you what if the government will guarantee this? You take over this company at a sweetheart deal." Maybe there's no tax on it. He's going to get something. That's what I would do if I was in his position. So I think he might just be waiting. He's exited some of the banks over the last. He exited Apple. He's exited a lot, at least some of it. He's on the sidelines. I think the number's somewhere around $350 billion this summer around. So it wouldn't surprise me if he redeploys. A lot of other people don't know too. Just I'm in the metals manufacturing, so we do a lot of tooling, CNC work, a lot of metals cutting. Most of the companies that we work with is a Berkshire company. So he now controls the majority of metals manufacturing in the United States through some other Berkshire companies. So it's a very interesting. So he's very integrated into the success of the United States. That's why, in my opinion, it's going to change and probably look a lot different, and we may go through some tough pains, but the United States isn't necessarily going to leave. We're too much of an asset. We may go through some deep, heavy pain on the way there.
Well, and one of the greatest assets he has is, I know he announced his retirement recently, but is he 92? Is that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, to be as sharp as he is at 92, that's worth more than even his stock portfolio. It's pretty incredible what he's done, living on a egg McMuffin every morning for breakfast or whatever he's kind of famously done on his route to
and a can of Coca-Cola. Yeah, that's kind of his, but that's also his shtick. Like that's his. He wants you to think that he's just like us, right? That's like
I'm just a good old boy. I live in the same house I did in the '60s. I just very simply.
Yep. But hey, he's been fairly successful. So
just a farm kid from Nebraska, just elbow grease.
How many people at 94 have that kind of sharp mind?
Yeah, well, he's used it a lot. Bridge player apparently as well. So would you say the dollar then is it? To me, it seems like it should be worse than it is, but is it because all the other currencies are so bad? Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, has a line about you don't have to be thin; you just can be the skinniest guy at McDonald's. He said, hey, read it and wheat, boys. It's size 45. Well, this is what this looks like. So, is it just by comparison that the dollar looks good, but it's just kind of the skinniest guy at McDonald's at this point?
Yeah, I mean, look, all the currencies have currency pairs, so they're paired with the euro, the yen, and so when you look at it, the dollar has been fairly strong, and it has held up versus some of the other currencies. Obviously, it's moved kind of hard down just in the last month or two, but it has been very, very strong. But when you compare it to assets such as gold, it's going down. Even took it to assets that you have to buy things. I think we've all been to the grocery store, right? We've all bought a car. Things do not cost what it did 10 years ago.
No.
So when we say, often when the news says the dollar is strong, they're just saying, yeah, versus Europe.
Right.
But versus our lives, it's been terrible. It's been very, very weak. And so it continues to fall apart. And that's where, like, I don't know where the price of gold or silver will be tomorrow or next year, exactly where it's going to be. But I like being where the wind is blowing, unless we think we're going to have world peace and our politicians are going to stop spending money. And, then maybe it's time to sell.
And we quit being so reliant on technology.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a new iPhone.
No one wants new iPhones. No one wants to use AI or search engine. Yeah, all that stuff. So yeah, and in theory, they don't want consumers in gold and silver heavily either, because that's not providing an economic benefit. If anything, it's creating some inflation for assets that they want. So they roll out the Larry Finks of the world. That's part of BlackRock. And look, I've held Bitcoin for a long time, and I like it. I think it could do well. But I also watch when they demonize gold, and I'm like, why can't you just demonize fiat? Why do you have to demonize gold? And so when they say, when Larry Fink says you can't trust those politicians, and I think Bitcoin's a great buy, but he also represents central banks. BlackRock works with the big boys. Why aren't they saying anything good about gold? Instead, they kind of demonize it, or they put it in the room, in the corner, or it's done so well. And the fact is, I saw the chart, the U.S. Mint gold sales, they're not very good. They're in the toilet. Retail precious metal sales, and I manufacture for big IRA companies and the online shops and governments and people all over the world. Like, retail's been pretty quiet the last year and a half, 2 years. So retail is not the reason why precious metals have gone up. When at some point the retail will wake up, that's when people are scrambling for the same asset at the same time. So this is going to be an interesting point where, the banks have been acquiring lots of gold and silver. They're moving it around, but consumers have been selling it. And as that stuff gets sold inevitably to whether it's a coin shop down the road, and then interest rates are higher on precious metals as well, they can't hold on to it. So inevitably that gets sold to a refinery and then eventually a bank. And then the bank has it turned into a COMEX bar that they put on the shelf for themselves. So I'd say over the last 18 months, the banks have sucked a lot of metal out of consumers, because consumers are either tapped because they need money, or they think $3,000 gold is high. But meanwhile, the biggest of the big are saying this is the time to be buying, and so they're buying it instead. So at some point, retail's they're gonna have an aha moment, and that may come when there's more fear in the market, more fear in the financial market. So right now, we early April had like 1 week of scare in the stock market.
Yeah.
Now kind of bouncing. I mean, at some point there's going to be a level where people say, you know what, I'm way underserved. I'm under owning, precious metals, and financial advisors don't recommend it. If I had a, spitball, it's in the single digits of people that own physical metals in the United States.
Yeah.
Is that on the lower end? I'm not really sure where it's at, but it's fairly pathetic. So as people, and I also have talked about this, and I believe there's a coming gold renaissance where it's everyone is going to start buying it and just kind of dollar cost averaging in every single month. And so this is what other cultures do. Like in Germany, they've done so much in through the years. They've gone through currency wipeouts. Well, the United States, we haven't. And so I think you're going to see, as people start to get more and more concerned, you're going to see more and more people on a regular basis just start to compound. Obviously, I'm in the sector, so yes, I'm talking my book, but I believe in my products. I'm in this space because I want to be where we're headed. And
Right.
it's really nice to sell a product that you believe in, and it can, while it does have some volatility, it can also be, a Noah's Ark of sorts, financial Noah's Arks for families during times of crisis.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, April the 11th, you tweeted, Americans are underexposed to gold. This is the decade, many years to go. Financial advisors that had you underexposed are saying it's gone up too much. They have no clue. A gold renaissance is coming, higher percentage of people plus greater core of their wealth. You're consistent in your message, and I could not possibly agree more. What's your saying? I've heard you say it quite a few times, like walk in the footsteps of giants. Look,
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
see nations making these kind of moves, they do what they do.
Follow in the footsteps of giants is that's a it's a very reasonable concept, right? Everyone you want to take it. Everyone wants a shortcut, right, to great wealth, and that doesn't mean that maybe you find the next Amazon stock to buy before everyone else. But the reality is if you follow the bigs at the biggest capital of the world, where are they deploying? Where are they going? You usually things are happening in advance. And my other take would be is that gold is moving so hard and so fast really in this year, and I don't think it's going to stop. I think we'll have great volatility up and down, so it's going to be wild. But I feel like it's forecasting of what is coming. There is something inherently wrong. It's broken. You've heard the World Economic Forum people.
Mm-hmm.
They have said that we need a great reset.
Yeah.
The question is what does that reset look? And the reality is the monetary system is completely broken, and everyone really kind of understands that. So what is that going to look like? And I don't have the answers. And so again, I watch what the giants are doing, not what they're saying, not what they're
That is a
saying
great point.
because they'll say lots of things.
Yeah.
They'll say lots of things, but then I just look at what they actually do. So
Wait, is that and Michael Jordan probably wasn't drinking Gatorade all the time or eating McDonald's. I don't think Shaquille O'Neal drives a Buick. You got to look what these guys really do, not what you see them on screen saying. It's the same way with financial advisors and a lot of these brands. Josh, I want to end on something kind of fun here. You put a clip on social media a while back. Kind of ties into people's like party brain when they were in college, combined with investing. I want to play this little, maybe play it as a B-roll clip. How much gold fits into a red Solo cup? So pretty cool clip. I watched it over and over and over. I was waiting to see the number. It's kind of cool. I'd never had that pose. I'm like, how much gold would fit in a red Solo cup if it's refined into little BBs? What the heck is that?
and there are some different cups out there. I think that particular one, I'm pretty sure that was 100 ounces. So that's as of today, almost $340,000 of gold that was just poured in there.
Wow. And it'd probably be a good place to hide it, in your pantry, and under that, put a couple Doritos on top of there or something, and everybody's going to leave it alone.
So that's called gold grain. When metal is molten and you pour it into water, it beads up. And so it becomes an easier way for manufacturing companies to work with it. Unfortunately, if you were to walk across the street to your neighbor and says, hey, do you want to buy some of this? You're probably not going to get a good price because he doesn't know if it's real or not. So
right.
It doesn't have any identification marks on it, those types of things. But we do use quite a bit of that type of stuff.
Wow. What a fascinating line of work. I don't know how you planned this out. If you sat down with your guidance counselor in high school, and I think you go to Florida State, and you went all around, and you end up here, there, you're Latin American.
The Lord blessed me with wisdom and gave me a lot of wonderful people around me. And you know what? I work hard. We want to be successful, but I just want to give glory to the Lord in what I do.
Well, it shows. I encourage people to follow you on X for sure, at Josh Philip Phair. We'll put the link down below. I've had it on the screen here a few times, but at Josh Philip, and then it's Phair. if you're interested enough to be tuning into this show today, you want to be following him on a daily basis because number one, it's interesting. Number two, you're consistent and you're kind of given a fresh, good, honest take on things that are happening. I love following you on X. I'm glad that you're there. Can't believe that it's such a new account because it's so active, and you got a lot of followers, a lot of people tuning into what you're doing, especially like stuff on the plane where you kind of get your headphones, you kind of sink down, and you're like, hey, just observe something. You kind of get these, feel like you're getting like secret intel, like you're leaving your wife a message or something, and you get to listen in on some.
That there was a weekend, yeah. Because I wasn't even on social media until I think it was the end of January. I did my first X post. And I think there was one weekend between X, Instagram, and TikTok. I think we had 5 million views. It was just a little, yeah, there's
that green hat one. I remember that one.
That thing just went nuts. So I think I was flying back from Europe and someone says, I'm not going to take you serious because you're wearing a hat. I'm like, I'm traveling overseas.
Then don't.
I'm just like everyone else. I'm going to put a hat on from time to time. So, but I had something interesting to share. I had no idea how many people would like to hear what I have to say. So,
and it helped and encouraged a ton of people. It kind of reminds me of that line from what's it called with Julia Roberts, where she's a prostitute. Pretty Woman. Pretty Woman, where he pulls over for directions, and she's like, "I can tell you directions will be $20," and he's like, "You can't charge me for directions. I can do whatever I want. I'm not lost." And it's kind of like, hey, I could put out information wearing a hat on a plane because you know what? I already have the information. So then don't watch it. Move along and watch somebody doing a funny dance or whatever, because this is valuable. Yeah. So I love your perspective, love what you do, and you are bringing a good perspective back to, what we said earlier in the show, cowboy culture. Whether people like a hat or wear boots or any of these things or not, the idea of things being real. Metals are real. The things you make are real. The information that you give out is real. And the things that you believe in are real. And I really appreciate your time coming on here with me today. And thank you. Thank you for joining me on this show tonight. I learned a ton. What a great guy. I think that conversation could have gone a couple more hours, and I might have more questions for Josh now than even when we started. So I'd love to pick that up. A lot of notes. I want to go back and listen to that myself. Again, it's interesting to me that something as important as the foundation of the entire monetary system could be physically moving around the world with different nations having it. Why would they want to be gathering up their gold that's been stored somewhere else? Why would a nation like Russia be considering adding silver to its balance sheet? What if the United States changes its financial association with gold? Why would people like Jamie Dimon be selling Chase stock, $233 million. These are all fascinating things that we need to be tuned in and watching out for. So I encourage you, again, follow Josh at 𝗧𝗢𝗄𝗏 on X. Definitely do that. If you want to go a little further in this conversation, you're new to the space and you want to increase your vocabulary on some of these aspects, just an incredible place to start is this free book, Thriving in the Economic Tsunami with Dr. Kirk Elliott. You can go to flyovergold.com and get a free copy of this, and you could be reading it tonight. You can be reading it tomorrow. It's a fast, fun read, has great advice that everyone reading it, you'll probably wish, I wish somebody sat me down when I was 18 and talked to me about the $2 million cup of coffee. But if you also want to learn about metals, investment, what not just creates wealth, but what really is wealth. He breaks it down in this book. I've had conversations about this with people like Laura Logan and many people that you see on the screen there because he advises them on the exact subject. So Thriving in the Economic Tsunami is a great place to start. The guy has not one, but 2 PhDs. Encourage you to do that. Again, we're going to be back here every single Wednesday night with some of the brightest minds in this space. I'm so excited to continue learning myself, continue sharing this information. Please like and subscribe to this channel and share it with people you know that are interested in this subject matter. If you have guest suggestions, put those down below. People you think would add a lot to this conversation. I would certainly appreciate that. Again, I just bless you to continue to learn, grow, make wise choices, and apply the golden rule whenever humanly possible. And I'll see you back here again next Wednesday night.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Flyover Conservatives podcast with David and Stacy Whited. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment below. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's podcast, share with those who came to mind. Be blessed and make it a great day.